Hello, my name is Tijani Ahmed, and the topic of my presentation is research proposal using the capability approach, enhancing early childhood education for marginalized communities. This is a oral presentation required by the professor in charge, Dr. Olga Vega, and the course title is JUS 700 International Human Rights. To begin with, is the introduction to the capability approach. By way of definition, the capability approach is developed by Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum. Pardon my pronunciation. Yeah, it focuses on individuals' real freedoms to achieve well-being. So capability approach basically focus on individuals' real freedom to attain achieve their well-being as human being. So one of the key concepts of capability approach is functionings. Functionings has to do with various things a person manages to do or to be. For example, I managed to become a teacher, and how I function well being a teacher is my functionings. And then the next concept is capability, which talks about the freedom and opportunities to achieve functionings. My capability is how well my freedom to have various options to be able to focus as a teacher, which is my functioning area. And the third one is agency. Agency is the person's ability to pursue the goals they value. So the agencies I have now is the education I go through, my form of teacher training that I go through to enable me to pursue my goal as a teacher in this context. So it is important that we look at all these concepts in relation to early childhood education, which is my area of focus. And this is a research proposal that focuses on capability approach in order to enhance early childhood education as regards the marginalized people or the marginalized community. Importance in social welfare. Capability approach go beyond economic growth. It focuses on equity, opportunity, and well-being. Next is the research topic overview. The issue that this proposal will tackle is the limited access to quality early childhood education, which exists in marginalized community. I am from a developing country, Nigeria, where the access to early childhood education is very, very limited because early childhood education is just recently been passed into policy to be part of the basic education. It was not part of the basic education that children are expected to go through, and the government were not involved in the provision of this form of education for a long time. It was just recently, I think in 2020, that they passed the law that early childhood education should be included into the basic education. So this has boosted my interest in this form of education. So the main issue is the limited access to quality education. The relevance of capability approach, therefore, is that education as a capability, like I said, while defining the key concept of capability approach, I mentioned functioning. So education as a capability provides freedom and opportunity for lifelong development. So that is the relevance of this approach to early childhood education. Capability approach, because education is itself is a capability which enables human being to function and develop in the society. That is the first relevance. And then the long-term impact. Higher educational attainment equals better employment and improved well-being. So that is another relevance of this approach to education. And then the last one is equity and justice, ensuring all children have the freedom to develop foundational cognitive and social skills. So next will be the problem statement of this proposal, which is that it is not known how limited access to quality early childhood education affects long-term educational and socioeconomic outcomes for children in marginalized community. This gap has been established in research because many studies focused on test scores rather than the holistic development, which makes this particular research important, and it necessitates carrying out this research. So few studies examine long-term impact on capability and agency as observed by Walker et al. In 2011. And the next one is the need for context-specific early childhood education policies tailored to marginalized communities. So this proposal, because it is not focusing on test score, number one, that creates a gap. That is one of the gaps it wants to fill. The fact that it is going to be specific to marginalized communities. That is the second thing. And the third thing is that it's going to focus on long-term impact of capabilities and agencies. Addressing the gap in nature, Barnett have found that early interventions improve cognitive skills, but did not measure long-term well-being. And this proposal will be focused on the long-term well-being of children, especially children in the marginalized community. The next one, how my study is going to address this capability-based framework will be used to assess both cognitive and the social freedom of children in the schools that enable them to function well in the society. The next one is that my research is going to focus on marginalized children to identify disparities in access and the outcomes. This is going to measure the marginalized community, how they have access to early childhood education, and then their outcome will also be measured. And then policy recommendation, which will be to improve ECE funding, accessibility, and quality. Methodology and design. The methodology will be a mixed method because I'll be using both the qualitative and the quantitative approach. Quantitative will be in form of surveys of early childhood education access, where I'll be collecting numeric data on the ECE access, learning outcomes, and long-term impact. While the qualitative part of the research we have to do with interviews with educators, parents, and policy makers. The research design will be a comparative case study, as I will be examining different ECE models in marginalized communities. The continuation, the population will be, I'm going to use purposive sampling to select the participants across all the different areas that I need. 200 parents and caregivers for the survey, 50 educators and policymakers for interviews and focus groups, while 150 children for observational assessment to know the impact on these children. And then the quantitative instruments include the survey for parents and the educators. And I am going to use the adapted standardized questionnaire from UNESCO's Early Childhood Education Assessment Tools, while I'm going to also use development assessments for the children, the modified version of the Early Childhood Development Instrument, which evaluates cognitive, language, and emotional and social development of these children. The qualitative instrument will be a semi-structured interview guide, which will be conducted with educators and policy makers to understand the barriers and opportunities for ECE improvement. The expected outcome, it is expected that when this research is carried out, it's going to lead to improved understandings of ECE gaps, to identify the systemic barriers to quality early childhood education, and next is going to recommend policies that is going to create policies that expand the capabilities-based education programs. And the next one is that it's going to have a social impact in form of there will be equitable access to early childhood education that is going to lead to greater educational success and socio-economic mobility. Conclusion, the capability approach reframes education as a fundamental freedom, not just an economic necessity. My research will contribute to policy development that prioritizes equitable access to early childhood education, and then focusing on capabilities rather than test scores ensures that children receive an education that enhances lifelong well-being and not just the immediate impact of the education. The final thought is that investing in early childhood education is an investment in human freedom and justice. This is because early childhood education is the foundation for all other forms of education that the children is going to receive. The references are as listed. Thank you very much as I await your contribution and comments.